Welcome to Advantage Home Care's Diversity and Inclusion Training. After this training, you will have a good understanding of what diversity and inclusion is, why it's important, and how to make your life and work safer and inclusive for yourself and others. Before we start, why are we even talking about this, and what are the guidelines for this conversation? Glad you asked. Many workplaces are well-meaning when it comes to diversity and inclusion, but often, caring deeply isn't enough. We have to practice inclusive behavior every day. And one of the most powerful ways we can do that is to talk about diversity and address challenging topics. But here's the thing. Sometimes our uncertainty of the right words to use about diversity can be paralyzing. Most of us are worried we'll handle it wrong, say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, or ask the wrong question. And as a result, we simply don't talk about race, religion, disability, gender, sexual orientation, ageism, or any number of different topics at work. But that's not helpful. As Melody Hobson says in Color Blind or Color Brave, not talking about our differences is dangerous because it means we also ignore related issues like discrimination and the very real barriers to equality. Melody explains that the first step to solving any problem is to not hide from it. Being able to talk freely about differences without feeling intimidated, without being scared of offending someone or hurting someone's feelings, is really important. So, this training is designed to create awareness and to help us all feel less intimidated in talking about our differences. So, let's agree before we get started that there is no single right way to talk about any of this. There is no universal glossary to cover all facets of diversity. The correct term to use can depend on geography, context, political preference, or many other things. There is no single best way to describe a facet like gender, race, ethnicity, or disability. As long as you have good intentions and avoid obviously rude terms, it's usually fine to ask someone how they describe themselves. Just be kind, respectful, curious to learn, and vulnerable enough to genuinely ask. So, what exactly is diversity and inclusion? Diversity is defined as the state of being diverse or variety. It is also the practice of including people from a range of different social and ethnic backgrounds, and of different genders and sexual orientations. In a nutshell, diversity is about respecting and appreciating what makes everyone different. This includes all people, no matter their age, gender, ethnicity, race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, education, socioeconomic background, language, culture, national origin, or even political belief. It means understanding one another by surpassing simple tolerance to ensure people truly value their differences. This allows us both to embrace and to celebrate the rich dimensions of diversity contained within each individual and place positive value on diversity in the community and our workplaces. So, what is inclusion? Inclusion relates to the quality of human experience. It's about creating a work environment where everyone feels valued and experiences a sense of belonging. Inclusion is an intentional effort in which different groups or individuals having different backgrounds are culturally and socially accepted and welcomed. Inclusive cultures make people feel respected and valued for who they are as an individual or group. In inclusive cultures, people feel a level of supportive energy and commitment from others so that they can be their best, most authentic self. In simple terms, diversity is the mix of people, and inclusion is getting the mix of people to work well together. So, like equity and equality for all, right? Not exactly. In order to understand how diversity and inclusion work, let's define the difference between equity and equality. Equality means providing everyone with the same amount of resources, regardless of whether everyone needs them. Equity is when resources are shared based on what each person needs to adequately level the playing field. Here is a great example. The picture on the left shows equality. Everyone with the same amount of resources regardless of what each person may need. The picture on the right depicts equity. Resources are shared based on what each person needs to adequately level the playing field. Inequity or inequality are embedded in our world's most pertinent issues. By understanding the difference between equity and equality, we are able to better create a world where the most vulnerable are protected and supported most effectively. So why is creating diversity and inclusion so difficult? Because whether we realize it, every one of us suffers from unconscious bias. Everyone, even you. Let's start with the definition. Bias is a prejudice in favor of or against a thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way that's considered to be unfair. Biases may be held by an individual, group, or institution and can have negative or positive consequences. There are two types of biases: conscious bias and unconscious bias. 1. Conscious bias is also known as explicit bias. In conscious bias, you are aware that the bias occurs. 2. Unconscious bias is also known as implicit bias. Unconscious bias occurs where there is a blind spot in your thinking. You are not aware that you are acting favorably or unfavorably towards a particular person or group. Biases, whether they are conscious or unconscious, can exist toward any group. We mentioned age, gender, ethnicity, race, religion, disability, and sexual orientation earlier. Biases can also be based on socioeconomic background, education, language, culture, national origin, political beliefs, weight, smoking, eating habits, and many other factors as well. Unconscious biases are social stereotypes that we form outside of our awareness. Everyone holds unconscious beliefs, and these biases stem from our tendency to organize social groups by category. Unconscious bias is far more common than prejudice. Certain scenarios can activate our unconscious attitudes and beliefs. For example, we may be more unconsciously biased when we are stressed or working under pressure. Let's take a look at some common examples of unconscious bias. Gender bias is the favoring of one gender over another. It is often referred to as sexism. This bias occurs when someone unconsciously associates certain stereotypes with different genders. Ageism refers to stereotyping or discriminating against others based on their age, often happening to older team members or clients we serve. Name bias is the tendency to prefer certain names over others, usually Anglo-sounding names. Beauty bias refers to the favorable treatment and positive stereotyping of individuals who are considered more attractive. This has given rise to the term lookism, or discrimination based on physical appearance. The halo effect is a term coined by psychologist Edward Thorndike in the 1920s. The halo effect occurs when we develop an overall positive impression of someone based on only one of their qualities or traits. This effect may lead us to inadvertently put people on a pedestal since we're constructing an image of a person based on limited information. In contrast, there is what is known as the horns effect. The horns effect is the opposite of the halo effect. This bias causes us to have a negative impression of someone based on one trait or experience. Putting too much weight on a single trait or interaction with someone can lead to inaccurate and unfair judgments of their character. Confirmation bias is the tendency to seek out and use information that confirms our views and expectations. In other words, cherry-picking information to validate certain points. This affects our ability to think critically and objectively, which can lead to skewed interpretations of information and overlooking information with opposing views. Conformity bias is similar to groupthink, which occurs when we change our opinions or behaviors to match that of the bigger group, even if it doesn't reflect our own opinions. This bias may occur when we encounter peer pressure or are trying to fit into a certain social group or professional environment. Affinity bias is also known as similarity bias and refers to the tendency to favor people who share similar interests, backgrounds, and experiences. We tend to feel more comfortable around people who are like us. Contrast effect. We often make judgments by making comparisons. As a result, our judgments may be altered depending on what standard we're comparing something to. This is known as the contrast effect. Status quo bias describes our preference for the way things are or for things to remain as they are, which can result in resistance to change. Anchor bias occurs when we over-rely on the first piece of information we receive as an anchor to base our decision-making upon. This causes us to see things from a narrow perspective. Overconfidence bias is the tendency for people to think they are better at certain abilities and skills than they actually are. And finally, perception bias. Perception bias occurs when we judge or treat others based on often inaccurate, overly simplistic stereotypes and assumptions about the group they belong in. It may involve other biases such as gender, age, and appearance. The good news is that once we are aware of our unconscious biases, we can take steps to mitigate their effects. By taking small steps together, we can work toward a more diverse and inclusive work environment. So, what are the benefits of improving diversity and inclusion in our company? Diversity and inclusion are important in life, important in culture, and incredibly important in healthcare. So important, in fact, that lives literally depend on it. Not to mention, workplaces that prioritize diversity and inclusion efforts have been statistically proven to be safer, happier, and more productive work environments. By intentionally bringing diversity and inclusion to our workplace, we are bringing together a wide variety of perspective, talents, and concepts. Pretty cool for us and for the people we serve every single day. There are countless individuals who enter home health care every day looking for help. They include people from every race, creed, gender, and age, a melting pot of humanity. And to best communicate, understand, and treat them with the best care possible, it's vital they feel seen and cared for by us, exactly as they are. In short, the better your patient is represented and understood, the better they can be taken care of. Okay, it helps our clients. What about us? Diversity in the workplace also carries a host of benefits for our agency as a whole, our team members like you, and the patients you support. Those benefits include higher employee morale. Diversity creates a stronger feeling of inclusion and community for all of us, which makes our workplace feel safer and more enjoyable. Higher employee retention. This goes hand in hand with improved morale. The happier and safer our workplace is, the longer you are likely to enjoy your work and remain part of our team. Better recruitment. Our commitment to diversity helps make sure you are working side by side with the best of the best. Stronger individual motivation. Lack of diversity in a workplace can leave some teammates feeling stifled or unable to express their unique talents and personality traits. This may inhibit them from speaking up when their perspective is needed most. A diverse work environment sends the message that everyone's perspective is needed and valued. Better problem solving. A wide range of perspectives can lead to more creative solutions when solving problems during an emergency or even during routine client care. Allowing for new ideas and diverse perspectives can also lead to greater innovation and operational excellence. Better results. Diverse home health teams get better results. Period. Statistics show that teams who embrace diversity provide better health care. Just as healthcare diversity has its advantages, there are major risks that can be attributed to the lack of diversity. Let's take a look. With a lack of diversity, communication breakdown increases. Language barriers, differences in philosophy, differences in cultural norms, or even cultural bias can lead to communication breakdown with our clients. And when our clients cannot fully communicate or express their needs, dangerous mistakes can occur. Lack of diversity also means limited perspectives when providing client care and social support. It can stunt innovation and creative thinking, but more importantly, it could impede critical observations surrounding our clients' needs, affecting their health and well-being. So, how can we promote diversity in our workplace? There are many ways. We can create a welcome environment. Together, we can foster an environment of inclusiveness in every area possible. We can make sure that all voices are heard and that all coworkers and clients feel safe to share their perspectives. Next, we can address issues of bias quickly and openly. Often, victims of bias or discrimination are reluctant to come forward themselves for fear of repercussion or other forms of retaliation. Supporting coworkers and reporting cases quickly and transparently is vital to creating a safe working environment for everyone. Sometimes, the best action you can take to promote diversity and create an open work environment is to simply listen. Listening, without interjecting or suggesting fixes, helps each of us understand new perspectives, opens our minds to unseen needs, and shows coworkers or patients that their opinion matters. It is also helpful to become an ally. Being an ally is not always easy. It is not as simple as just standing there saying that you support someone. It requires taking action. Being an ally does not mean that you fully understand what it feels like to be oppressed. It means that you take on their struggle as if it is your own, that you become a powerful voice beside them. Lastly, we can help create diversity by encouraging diverse applicants. Do you know someone who would be a wonderful fit for our community? Encourage them to pursue their dreams and apply with us today. Always remember, the point of encouraging diversity isn't to have a diverse workplace. It's to have a better workplace. Before we conclude, it is important to recognize this training is simply the first step. Diversity isn't something that can be created overnight. It requires a leadership dedicated to increasing cultural awareness and inclusion. It requires coworkers who are willing to take the time to learn about each other. It means being willing to identify and address personal biases, and it means boldly opening ourselves up to discomfort for the greater good of our patients. We look forward to creating a safe, diverse, and inclusive workplace with you. Enjoy your day.